Signed, sealed. Seduced Part 5. Chapter 17 Casino Royale Chaos. The Alzara casino never slept. It didn't shimmer or glitter, it glowed, from the inside out, like a dragon curling beneath a city of silk and shadows. Tonight, it pulsed with something more than wealth. Tonight was invitation only. The casino's grand hall had been cleared and transformed into a private gaming sanctuary, baccarat tables surrounded by curved glass walls, roulette wheels gilded in platinum, card dealers in white gloves and diamond cufflinks. No tourists. No cameras. Only money. Power. Intent. And Clara. She stepped out of the elevator like a woman walking into her own trial, chin high, lips blood red, wearing a dark emerald gown that clung like it had been sewn onto her bones. She'd chosen the dress herself. No stylists. No handlers. She wanted to feel every inch of the night. The eyes. The scrutiny. The suspicion. Dario had tried to stop her. Not with force, but with warnings. "You've seen enough," he'd said that afternoon. "No," she'd answered. "Now I want to hear it." Now, here she was. Every head turned as she entered the gaming floor. Not because she was unexpected, no. The guest list was curated to the decimal. She was on it. Because she was on stage now. The fiancé. The asset. The alleged partner in crime. She walked past the roulette table like she didn't see the murmurs. Past the poker elite, a Saudi prince, a Russian oil magnate, and a French media baron, all with smiles sharp as switchblades. At the baccarat table near the center, she paused. A glass was already waiting for her. Champagne. She took it. Dario was across the room. Watching. Leaning against the bar like he had nothing to do with the tension snapping between the floor tiles. But he watched her with a kind of pride. Like he knew she'd show up. Like he'd been waiting. She didn't look away. Time passed in velvet increments. Clara wandered through the hall with the grace of someone pretending she wasn't looking for something. But she was. She tilted her head to the side as she passed a group of men whispering in rapid Italian. She slowed, just enough. €40 million washed through Marseille. Not through the French accounts anymore. Too hot. Palermo's cleaner. Use Vescari's shell. The fiancé's name is already on it. Clara froze. Just a flicker. Then moved on. They were using her name. Actively. She felt her skin prickle beneath the gown. She moved toward the back lounge, where the truly discreet meetings happened. Champagne and portfolios. Cigar smoke and code words. She didn't belong here. But she belonged everywhere now. Her face was the casino's brand. She stepped into the low-lit lounge just as a waiter passed behind her. A single second. That's all it took. A stumble. A muttered apology. And then, a splash. Ice-cold champagne across her shoulder and bodice. The waiter gasped. "Miss Cassie." His accent was forced. His tray hit the ground too late. The room turned. Dozens of heads. Gentle gasps. Polite panic. Clara stood frozen. Not because of the spill. Because of what came next. The champagne soaked through her gown, revealing not skin, but plastic. A thin, black device. Taped beneath the fabric just under her collarbone. Visible now. Glinting under the gold light. A microphone. There was a second of total silence. Then, "She's wired." Not a shout. Just a voice. Cold. Male. Italian. And the entire room snapped into chaos. Chapter 18 Spy Games. The moment the words were spoken, "She's wired," the room changed. Not with panic. Not with screaming. But with something far more dangerous. Stillness. Every head turned toward Clara. No one moved. No one needed to. Because the men in black suits were already walking, not running, across the room. Casino security. But not the kind that checked IDs. These were the kind that didn't wear name tags. The kind who moved with silent certainty and the weight of concealed weapons. Clara took one step backward. Her heel caught on the edge of the rug. Someone reached for her arm. She didn't resist. Not because she was calm, she wasn't, but because she knew the fastest way to get herself shot was to look like she was trying to run. They didn't handcuff her. That would have been too obvious. Instead, they flanked her. Two on each side. One at her back. Guiding. Firm. Not painful, but final. She was led through the crowd. The baccarat table resumed like nothing had happened. The dealer called cards with eerie calm. One of the high rollers glanced at her with vague amusement and muttered something to his companion in Russian. As if she were a floor show. As if she were expected. The hallway behind the main floor was colder. Narrower. No velvet, no gold, no illusions. Just walls. White. Clinical. Silent. She was pushed into a small room with a steel door and no windows. Fluorescent light buzzed overhead. A chair. A table. Nothing else. They closed the door behind her. And locked it. She stood in the center of the room, soaked, trembling. The microphone, now fully visible through the wet fabric, pressed awkwardly against her collarbone. She hadn't put it there. She'd checked the gown. Triple-checked. That means someone else had. Someone had set her up. Her brain scrambled to catch up. Was it Bellini? One of the women from Milan? That waiter? Was this Dario, playing an even deeper game? Or was this the beginning of the end? The door opened again. Fast. Loud. Dario. His presence swallowed the room whole. His face was thunder. His walk, sharp, deliberate, full of heat. "Out," he said to the guards. "Now." The lead security man hesitated. Dario didn't repeat himself. They left. The door slammed shut behind them. And then it was just the two of them. Clara. And the man who might be her lover, her captor, or her executioner. He didn't speak. Not for a long moment. He just stared. Like he was seeing her for the first time. And then, "Are you insane?" She flinched. "I didn't, Dario, I swear, I didn't know it was there. You walked into my casino wearing a wire. I didn't put it there. I checked the dress, twice. I would never." He was already across the room, yanking a linen cloth from the table. She stepped back instinctively. He ignored it. With one sharp movement, he grabbed the neckline of the dress, not hurting her, but not gentle either, and pulled the fabric away just far enough to expose the device fully. The tape was cheap. The wire, thin. He stared at it for a beat. Then he took the linen cloth, wrapped it around the mic, and yanked. She gasped. It hurt, the tape-ripped skin, but she didn't cry out. Dario didn't flinch. He dropped the device onto the table. Stared at it. Then, without a word, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a cigar cutter. Polished steel. Compact. He placed the wire inside. Snapped it shut. Click. The microphone was severed. Ruined. Dead. And when he looked up at her again, his voice was quieter. Not calmer, just colder. If you go down, he said, we go down together. Clara didn't speak. Her throat was too dry. Her mind was racing. What had just happened? Why had he destroyed the mic instead of exposing her? Why hadn't he turned her in? Why did you do that? She finally whispered. Dario's eyes didn't blink. Because I still don't know if you're an enemy, or just the only thing in this place that isn't pretending to be something else. Chapter 19 Paparazzi Bombshell. The morning after the wire incident, Clara woke to silence. Not peace. Not safety. Just the absence of noise. No messages. No calls. No angry footsteps in the hallway. No doors slamming. And Dario. Vanished. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, still in the emerald dress from the casino, now crumpled and stained. Her shoulder still stung from where he'd ripped off the wire. The skin was raw. She hadn't slept. Not really. She'd just waited. Like someone on death row listening for footsteps. When she finally rose, the villa felt wrong. Too still. Too curated. A fresh outfit had been laid across the chair by the window, pale linen trousers, a silk blouse, nude heels. Soft and elegant. A perfect costume. Her own clothes were gone. She changed in silence, then made her way down to the breakfast room, expecting another cold reception. Instead, she found a newspaper. Waiting. Folded. Neat. Placed right in front of her empty teacup. And on the front page, her own face. Exclusive, Vesceri's mystery bride files for marriage license in Sicily. The headline was huge. Below it, a sub-headline screamed. Private ceremony scheduled for this weekend, sources say, and we've got the paperwork. Clara sank into the chair, hands trembling, and opened the paper to the center spread. There it was. A scanned document. Official looking. Italian government seal. Legal headers. Ufficio dello Stato Civile Comune di Taormina. Marriage license application groom, Dario Vesceri. Bride, Clara Isabella Romano. Witnesses, classified. Date of ceremony, the 21st of October, 1 p.m. She blinked at the date. Then blinked again. Today was the 20th of October. The wedding was tomorrow. Her stomach flipped. She scanned the rest of the document like her brain might find a typo. A joke. A watermark that said prop. But it didn't. Her name. Her address. Her digital signature. Perfect. Too perfect. She hadn't signed this. She knew that for certain. And yet, it was hers. The exact slant of the R. The tail of the O. The curved E she always hated but couldn't seem to unlearn. Someone had copied it flawlessly. Not once. Twice. This was the second time they'd used her identity like a pen. Clara folded the paper with slow, shaking hands. The sound of the fold was loud in the quiet room. Too loud. Her phone, newly charged and mysteriously returned, buzzed once. She didn't want to look. But she did. A text. Unknown number. Try to run now. We'll call it a kidnapping. No name. No punctuation. Just certainty. She stood. Walked out of the room. Found her reflection in the hallway mirror. She didn't recognize herself anymore. Silk blouse. Bare makeup. The faint red mark on her collarbone from the mic. She looked like a bride being prepared for slaughter. She didn't go to Dario. She went to the garden. The one place that hadn't yet turned into a stage. She sat on the edge of the stone fountain and stared at the koi swimming in slow, lazy circles. One gold. One white. One black. Around and around. No way out. The sun warmed her shoulders. And somewhere inside, something finally cracked, not from fear, but from resolve. She was getting married tomorrow. Whether she wanted to or not. Chapter 20 The Lake Como Wedding. It was too quiet for a wedding. That was the first thing Clara noticed. Not because there wasn't noise, there was music, low and angelic. Champagne corks in the distance. Soft laughter rippling across the garden like a breeze. But it was the wrong kind of quiet. Not joyful. Not romantic. Just, rehearsed. Curated. Like everything else in this house. Like her. She stood inside the villa's bridal suite, surrounded by mirrors that reflected a version of her she didn't recognize. The gown was haute couture, a custom piece flown in overnight from Paris. Hand-beaded. Backless. Ivory. Cut to make her look like she'd stepped out of a dream. Every stitch was a whisper of luxury. It had taken 6 people to zip her in. 2 to fasten the shoes. 1 to place the diamond comb in her hair, a Vescari heirloom that Dario insisted she wear. Everything fit perfectly. Too perfectly. Bellissima, one of the attendants said, stepping back. He won't be able to breathe when he sees you. Clara smiled politely. But inside, her lungs had already collapsed. The ceremony was being held on the lower lawn, at the edge of the water, beneath an arch of imported orchids and hand-strung crystal. The aisle was a mirrored path suspended slightly over the lake itself, so that, when she walked, it would look like she was gliding across water. There were drones. A 5-camera rig. A private orchestra in white tuxedos, tuned and waiting. And guests. Not friends. Not family. Witnesses. Bankers. Diplomats. Fashion editors. Old money criminals dressed like nobility. Every person in attendance had come not for the love story, but to see if she would do it. Would she marry the most dangerous man in Italy? Would she become the queen of the casino kingdom? Or would she run? And get ruined? She stood just out of view behind a hedge of white roses, veil not yet dropped, heart beating like a trapped bird. Dario was at the altar already. Of course he was. Calm. Serene. Angelic in a white suit that made him look like the villain in a fairy tale who hadn't lost once. She stared at him. And he smiled. Like he could hear her thoughts. A staff member stepped toward her. It's time. Clara nodded. Her knees felt disconnected from her body. Her hands were cold, even in silk gloves. She took the bouquet. She breathed. And she stepped forward. Gasps. Flashbulbs. A low swell of music. She walked down the mirrored aisle, each step echoing across the water as guests turned in synchronized choreography. She didn't look at any of them. Only at Dario. The man who had lied, and manipulated, and seduced, and saved her. The man she might hate. The man she might still love. The man who was about to force her into a vow she could never walk away from. At the altar, the officiant began in lilting Italian. Words about unity. About destiny. Clara barely heard them. The sun was too bright. The cameras too close. Everything smelled like roses and power. And then, Dario leaned in. His voice was low. Meant only for her. Say yes, or the scandal ruins you forever. She blinked. You'll be on every screen by sunset. Broke. Indicted. Alone. Her lips parted. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. She wanted to say anything. But all she managed was, "You don't have to do this." He smiled. Slight. Sharp. "But I want to." The officiant turned to her. The question came. The world held its breath. "Do you?" And then, sirens. Far off at first. Then closer. Closer. Not discreet. Not private. Loud. Piercing. Wailing. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Guests turned in their seats. The orchestra stopped playing. Dario's head snapped toward the villa. Clara dropped the bouquet. Chapter 21 The Fake Arrest. The sirens didn't stop. They grew louder, rising like a scream that had finally found its mouth. Guests stood now, turning fully from the altar, champagne forgotten, fans falling from manicured fingers. Security guards who once stood like statues were suddenly on their radios. The orchestra's instruments drooped in confused hands. Clara didn't move. She was still frozen at the altar, her bouquet already on the mirrored aisle, petals scattered like white feathers at her feet. Dario's eyes hadn't left the villa gates. He wasn't smiling anymore. Which terrified her more than anything. Then the gates burst open. 3 black SUVs. Matte finish. No logos. Government plates. Doors flung wide, and a wall of carabinieri officers poured out, uniforms crisp, armed, fast-moving. One of them barked orders in Italian into a shoulder-mounted radio. Another pulled out a folder of papers. They moved with the certainty of men who weren't afraid to ruin a wedding. And they were heading straight for her. Clara took a step back from the altar, her voice barely audible. "Dario, what's happening?" But he stepped in front of her suddenly, shielding her with one arm like a knight with no sword. "Get away from her," he snapped, voice thunder. "She's done nothing wrong." The lead officer held up the warrant. Clara didn't read Italian fast enough, but she recognized one word in bold. Fraud. Fraud. The officer said her name. Twice. Then reached for her wrist. And in that moment, the crowd exploded. Phones came out. Chairs overturned. A ripple of chaos, guests murmuring, cameras clicking, someone dropping a glass that shattered against the stone. She couldn't breathe. 2 officers took her arms. Clara yanked backward, her voice high, cracking. "No, wait, I don't understand, please comply. You have no right to touch her." Dario shouted. "She is my fiancée, this is her wedding day." His performance was perfect. Rage in every syllable. His arm outstretched, as if to stop the tide. his eyes wild with loyalty. The cameras drank it in. Clara stared at him. His face. His expression. The precision of it. The pause before each word. The placement of his body between her and the camera lens. She knew that face. She had watched it lie before. And suddenly, she knew. This wasn't real. He wasn't protecting her. He was orchestrating this. They dragged her through the crowd. Her veil slipped off. Her shoes scraped loudly against the mirrored dial as she was half walked, half dragged toward the waiting cars. Guests stared openly now. The fashion editor she'd met in Milan snapped a photo without shame. Someone whispered, "White collar. Makes sense." As they reached the courtyard, just before they shoved her into the back seat of the car, she looked up, and there he was. Dario. Standing in the center of the lawn, perfectly framed between two torches, his white suit now gleaming in the late daylight like a costume soaked in irony. His jaw tight. His brow furrowed. He looked devastated. And in his eyes, convincing tears. For them. For the crowd. For the cameras. Not for her. Because she saw it now. She saw what no one else could. He wasn't acting like he was losing her. He was making sure she'd never leave. That's the end of this part, but trust me, the next one is even more thrilling. We drop fresh episodes every day, so don't miss out. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned, you won't want to miss what's coming next.
Because every broken heart deserves a comeback. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe for more emotional romance every week. Hit like, drop a comment, and ring the bell so you never miss a moment of romance, redemption, and powerful love. And don't keep the drama to yourself, share this story with someone who lives for twists just like you. Thanks for listening, and remember, sometimes the best comeback is becoming unforgettable.